Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes. And then feel free if you have any questions or any thoughts to drop them in the chat. Awesome. People are still trickling in. Okay. Hi. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And just a reminder that this webinar is going to be recorded and it's going to live on our Native Ag Communicators webpage, which I will drop that link in the chat, but it is at nativeamericanagriculturefund.org /Native Ag Comms. So we have, I believe, 2 webinars left. It is September, November, and then December is actually going to be more of a round robin where we kind of talk about the year that we had as far as this Native Ag Communicators work group goes. And what we really want to do is last year, when we had that meeting, we put together ideas of things that we wanted to cover in this Native Ag Communicators work group. So I want that meeting in December to kind of be this come with your ideas, what worked this last year, what didn't work, what do we want to see moving forward. My name is Samantha Below. I'm the communications manager for the Native American Agriculture Fund. And even if you would want to be willing to kind of serve behind the scenes too, we're always accepting help. And like I said, ideas. A lot of the people that we've had on the webinars this year have been peers, have been Native Ag communication specialists that have either spoken up and have wanted to share some of their expertise, or that I've seen from the social media side of things and the online side of things and think they would be a really great presenter. I already know that next year I would love to have some speakers coming on that do serve more of like a mentorship or inspirational piece, and more than kind of like some of the technical webinars that we've been doing, but like someone just to even talk about, their experience in agriculture communications and where they're at now. So that's kind of what today is actually going to be. I'm actually going to get started by sharing our presentation here. So today is about amplifying youth voices in Native agriculture. Our next webinar is going to be in November, and it's going to be focused around Native American Heritage Month and a look back at the year. So what we want that to be, oh, there's a typo right there, but we want this to be an interactive session to discuss Native organizations, communities, and individuals that are using digital communications to share stories, elevate voices, and drive impact during Native American Heritage Month. So basically, we want to hear if you guys are doing anything special to highlight Native American agriculture, Native American heritage in general, because we want to use this group as a network to help amplify that message. So I feel like the code word for this year with the Native Ag Communicators group is just to amplify and network and work together, and because we are stronger when we work together. So that being said, This is what we have for today. We're going to hear from our youth and talk about real life stories on engaging and empowering the next generation through agricultural storytelling. So we actually do have Keona here. We have Gabrielle here. They're going to introduce themselves in a second. And we have Elaini here. We actually have a last minute addition, which we are so excited to have her because as you can see, she is currently in school right now, and her advisor logged on to, wish her well and wish her good luck in this, but she's going to do great. So that's Cornelia, and let's start by thinking what's one way you, as communicators, can amplify Native youth voices in your work. Native youth voices are very important. And I think one of the things that we're realizing behind the scenes here as communication specialists is not all of the youth just like wake up one day and they're like, I'm going to be a farmer, but what are some ways that we can help connect them to agricultural resources, number one, and give them that opportunity to get involved with the land? But also, what can we do as communication specialists to help share their stories or even help share resources to get youth involved in agriculture? And Elaini is going to talk about that when she speaks about some of the opportunities that IAC is involved with and has going on. But really just think about, and you can drop it in the chat if you want to, what's one way you can amplify Native youth voices in your work? As a communication specialist for NAF, we see a lot behind the scenes of social media, whether that's youth being out in the field, or we have one great TikTok that one of our grantees shared, and they were catching salmon and filleting salmon. And then the students went to jar the salmon, and even showing faces and glimpses like that of how the youth are being connected through their culture and tradition is really impactful for us to see. But wanting to kind of put this question at the forefront of your mind. And that being said, we're going to get started with our first panel. And so from interns to innovators, we are featuring three former agricultural interns, now leaders in their field, sharing why investing in and including young people is essential to the future of farming, food systems, and rural communities. So we're going to go ahead and get started with introductions. And Gabby and I were coworkers, so I'm going to go ahead and head to her first. So Gabby, could you please introduce yourself and tell the people kind of how you got started in agriculture? The floor is all yours.
Awesome. So, hello everybody. My name is Gabrielle Butter. I am a Cherokee Nation citizen from Northeast Oklahoma. I currently work for the Tribal Agriculture Fellowship as their communication coordinator, but I used to work with NAF as their communications officer and before then as an intern there. I graduated from Northeastern State University, double majoring in English and multimedia studies. And right now, I've just started my master's program in strategic communication and digital strategy at the University of Oklahoma. So, in this introduction, we were kind of asked to share our experiences in agriculture. So, I'm going to take you back right whenever I was a little kiddo. So, when I was younger, I never knew that I was doing agriculture every day. Back then, I remember my grandmas taking me out and teaching me which plants were food, what they needed to survive, where to avoid harvesting in case of bad chemicals, and how to make sure the plants come back each year in that same growth spot. But agriculture, at least the westernized version, was never on my mind. My parents always told me that 4-H and FFA took too much time and were too expensive. So I never really looked into the science of agriculture, and I never thought of ag as a career I'd want to go into. Um, but my cousins and I all had the same kind of background. But we always had the idea that it was just something we needed to do to survive. So my family was really poor. We mainly lived off of commodity cans and frozen pizzas. And most of the fresh produce we got back then was from the woods. So squirrels, deer, blackberries, poke, wild onions, wishy, all of that we harvested ourselves. And really, though, it was framed in this idea that we just needed to do it to survive. In high school, I taught myself how to grow back a small garden so we could get more veggies and fruit. But it wasn't until college that I realized maybe I had more of a connection to agriculture than I thought. And to kind of frame it to me and my cousins have technically been learning about and helping manage the land since we were 8 years old, if not younger. That was right around the time we were told the reasoning behind crucial messaging like the rule of three, the three sisters, and prayers for hunting and gathering. That's right around when we all started helping make sure the family stayed fed. And while thinking back to that, while we were learning so much, ideas were also flowing at that age. We were thinking about how do we strengthen the amount of food we have, what can we do to help conserve food, and what would help the family grow. And so, with that background, I know we'll get into that kind of more, but my plans for the future all tie into communicating about the beauty of native foods and the people who nurture them. It's been a dream of mine since I was little to write the stories of my people and share about the positive changes that are happening all around us. So, back in high school, instead of ag, I moved on to studying writing. I wasn't sure where that would lead me, but I had a good idea that I wanted to use my writing to help others share their story, whether that was writing books, pursuing journalism, or communications. And it was around that time in college where I learned that I could combine my love for agriculture with writing through NAF. And that was a huge surprise because I was never told ag communications was a possibility. But since I've gotten started, I've been able to meet with such amazing people all across the country protecting tribal food systems. And it's really inspired to keep myself growing and make sure that I am sharing their stories respectfully and visually pleasingly, if that makes sense. And so in my work, I focus on everything from making presentations, interviewing fellows, video editing, press releases, website development, analytics of the company, reporting, infographic designs, mapping, and social media. So I'm also getting started on a research project studying brand awareness and engagement. So I really have a foot in everything related to comms. But that's a little bit about me. I know it was a little bit, but I'll pass it on to the next person and I'll pick Keona.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Keona Mason. I am a member of the Kickapoo tribe of Oklahoma. I'm originally from Tishomingo, Oklahoma, so southeast area, and I'm currently in Stillwater at the Oklahoma State University. I'm a master's student getting my graduate degree in agricultural communications, and I also got my undergraduate degree in agricultural communications at OSU as well. So my beginning in agriculture kind of started when I was 3. I was adopted when I was 3 years old, and my parents went ahead and decided they wanted to start a small swine operation. So I grew up showing and raising pigs, and they started that with my older cousins. So I guess they're the ones that are lucky that whenever I came along, I really loved it. So I raised and showed pigs all throughout 4-H and FFA from when I was 9 until about 18 or 19, because when you get to that age, you can do open shows. And I was really active in public speaking in 4-H. And I think that is kind of where I started my communications journey because I used that as a way to introduce people to raising and showing pigs, kind of like, here's the nutrition, here's how we take care of them. And I think that at the ripe age of 9, that was my way of kind of advocating for agriculture and livestock care and that kind of thing. So I initially wasn't going to plan to study anything in agriculture. I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. So, the ophthalmologist to ag communicators pipeline is kind of interesting, but I felt like there was something in my heart just kind of telling me to stay within the realm of agriculture. And when I started at Oklahoma State, we get a really broad range of communications, kind of like what Gabby was saying. I got to experience both digital and print media and mediums. So got involved in graphic design, writing news articles and news releases, website design. And during my senior year at OSU, we do a capstone project, which is basically our Cowboy Journal magazine. So I got to have a really strong hand in that, just learning how design should work and how photography should work. And this past summer, I got to intern with both NAF and TAF. So I got to have a really broad experience there as well, just working with Gabby and how to create strong, visually appealing videos and how to highlight youth in TAF. And then also kind of looking at how to create a magazine template and how to make that visually appealing as well for NAF. So looking forward, I'm kind of hoping to continue this communications journey, but also I'm looking at going to law school and studying tribal law. So that is kind of my roadmap at the moment, but I'm very excited to see how communications continue to strengthen and how that works within Native agriculture.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we'll pass it over to you, Cornelia.
Okay, my name is Cornelia Oxendine. I am affiliated with the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina, and I am currently a senior at Purnell Sweat, and I am my FFA chapter's president. And when I got started in ag, I live on a farm, but I never got into ag, so I really didn't understand it. I would just see cows outside of my window, and they'd sometimes pop up right in front of my window, and it just scared the Jesus out of me. So ag, when I was younger, it didn't really appeal to me until I got into high school. My sophomore year, my ag teacher, Mr. Talik, I had him for Fort One, and he found out who my people was because my people are very big farmers, and he basically volunteered me to try out for to be an officer, and it was the best decision I ever did because I got to learn more and more about ag, and that it's not just farming and livestock, that there's so much more to ag. And when I found that out, I wanted to push myself in FFA to let people know more about that ag wasn't just farming. And I probably get on everybody's nerves at school, like, oh, you should join FFA. You should, like, it's really good for you. I'd always when I talk to people at like our booths, I'd ask them what they want to do for a living, and then I incorporate it some way to joining FFA. Let's say if they want to go into marketing, I say, well, you can go into ag business. There's not a lot of people that go into ag business. There's a lot of jobs and careers that you can do in ag. But my aunt, she's a vet tech at a local veterinarian in our area, and I've tried out many things, and I've found out that welding was my thing because I went to her vet one day and couldn't deal with seeing animals being couldn't do it. And then I got into ag mechanics, and that's what I'm planning to do after I graduate from Purnell Sweat. I'm planning on going to UNCP and major in horticulture. I know it's got nothing to do with metal and stuff, but I at least wanted to have like a backup plan if my welding didn't go haywire. But after I graduate from UNCP, I want to go and do the 2-year program at RCC and get my welding certification certified. Sorry. But I really want to be a mobile welder, especially for farming equipment. And um, it's just always intrigued me. And not a lot of people really think that a woman can do it. But there's a bunch of women welders, especially. But another thing that I did want to mention was that our FFA at Purnell Sweat is one of the largest Native American uh, populated FFA chapters, and I just look at it as accomplishment because we didn't have many people here in FFA when I first started it, and now we had our first banquet and we had over 40 plus people to join, and I think that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that you're just at school right now. That's so great. Thank you so much for joining us. So don't worry about any of the background noises or anything. Is that your advisor again? Amazing. Oh, hello. He's a horticulture teacher. Isn't today National Teach Ag Day? Yep.
Say it again.
Today's National Teach Ag Day.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, thank you for joining us, Mr.
You're good. You're good. Thank you for having us.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get in. He's awesome. Let's go ahead and get into some questions. So we kind of already talked about getting inspired in agriculture, but I want to hear from Keona and Gabby. How has communication, like social media, storytelling, shaped your journey to where you're at now professionally? And you guys did touch on it a little bit, but I mean, Gabby, I know you were involved in um, some of the NAF operations and getting a podcast started for NAF, and now you're over at the Tribal Agriculture Fellowship. So, what were some of the first steps when you were starting to get involved in communications?
Yeah, so my journey with communication is a bit unique where whenever I was younger, I didn't really have internet access up until I was a sophomore in high school, which means I learned most of my things through the radio, through books and stories from my family. So that's greatly influenced my style in communication, where I tend to prefer narrating a longer story. And so I kind of want to take it back a little bit of how I got involved in agriculture. So back to my last few years at college, I was looking into a journalism career initially, but I had noticed that I was missing growing my own food and cultivating food forests. So I took an indigenous permaculture course, which taught me how to grow permanent agriculture. And this led me to then learn more about NAF when my sorority sisters introduced me to them, and everything clicked at that point. And through that experience, I learned about the resources in my internship that federal and state tribes have in sharing their stories. And in case you don't know, it's not a lot that they have. I studied a lot of like different websites. I pulled a lot of information from them, and I realized there was this huge discrepancy of what people were able to do with the resources they had. And it kind of made me think more about ways that I could improve communication, not only with different tribal nations, but with NAF as well, because they asked me the question of how can we improve NAF? Um, and so at that time, I proposed reaching out to do more things through radio. And this was right before the COVID crisis, which then enhanced a lot more of internet opportunities across Indian country. But that line of thinking made me start thinking more about how can we help on a communication basis. And so I started putting a lot more of my focus on that. I'm also really inspired by programming like OCO.TV, which is the Cherokee Nation's television channel where they explore Cherokee citizens and lifeways. And I love investigative podcasts like This Land by Crooked Media. So my style is more of like a robust kind of conversation, but I do want to stress it's important to keep the idea of knowing how social media works and like the reels and those kind of things and keeping up the trends on that. So that's kind of my idea of communication, how it's been shaped once I started getting connected with NAF.
Mhm. Awesome. Those are, if anybody has any good podcast recommendations or books or any media recommendations whatsoever, we would love to hear them. I know we kind of haven't really discussed that at all, but you brought up a good point, Gabby. And media is everywhere, communications is everywhere. Keona, same question to you. How has communication helped shape your journey? I know you're going into tribal ag law, but has being involved on the communication side, whether it's stories that you've seen or stories that you've been able to tell, has any of that helped shape that decision?
Yeah, I would definitely say that communications as a whole kind of, I would argue, is pretty eye-opening. Growing up in an area that's not where my tribe is actually located, but like other tribes, kind of makes me want to dive a little bit more and kind of investigate kind of the history of my own tribe and kind of recognizing that everyone's journey is a little different. So when it comes to communications and then me wanting to go to law school, I think that puts me in a place where I can advocate for people who are similar to me, not only in the sense that we're native, but maybe we don't have the same experiences as other natives. So I didn't necessarily grow up learning a lot about Native agriculture, and I only learned so much about Native American history, which is just kind of based on whatever your school is teaching you. But I definitely think that being involved in communications has given me a path and a position to share my story and also build relationships. I am Gen Z to my core, so I am on TikTok, and I love going on there and seeing the different perspectives that you can see. And I think that I have made like quite a few friends through social media just because we have similar experiences that we can talk about and we can share with others. So I do think that that's kind of how communication shaped me.
Hmm. Okay, that's awesome. Cornelia and Keona, if someone wanted to tell your story, what's the best way they could approach you or other youth? In our line of work, I feel like we do get people that reach out to us like, hey, is anything happening to where they have a great story and we're able to tell it? I mean, even us at NAF, like we want to hear about the youth projects. And if there's a youth that kind of stands out and has a really great story to tell, everyone has a great story to tell. But if somebody wanted to tell your story, where would they start? How to build that relationship, which is what you spoke to, Keona. So I'm going to come back to you first and then we'll go over to Cornelia. But you're a little bit more practiced in the communications realm. So how would someone even begin reaching out to you to tell a story, and what would you like that to look like?
I think if we're speaking maybe locally, that's kind of just based on building some really good relationships with other organizations, other companies, other tribes. And whenever you build those relationships, that makes it a little bit easier to kind of reach out and be like, hey, here's what we're looking at. Is there anyone that fits that kind of area that we're looking at? And when it comes to communicating with a youth directly, I think that it's important to kind of meet them where they're at. So I've had experiences where people are okay with being on camera and they want to make a full video or they want to make a Instagram reel. And then some people are more so, can you just use the audio? I don't want my face to be shown, which is perfectly fine. And that's something that you kind of need to meet them where they're at, wherever they're comfortable and whatever medium they want that to be shown in. And I would also say, sorry, it's raining and I have a skylight if you can hear it.
Oh, no, cannot. You're good.
Okay, great. It's so loud above me. But I would also argue just kind of making sure that they feel a little bit comfortable. I know that whenever it comes to maybe video interviewing or something like that, people try to focus on not saying filler words like or like or something. But when I was doing an interview once, I was told that that means that they're really comfortable with you. So I would say that making sure that they're comfortable above all, and then also building those relationships.
That's a great point that you just made. And now I'm going to think twice about using the word just I'm comfortable with you. Okay, Cornelia, if someone were to swing by right now and want to tell your story, where should they even begin, or how would you like your story to be told?
I feel like they should begin by coming with me to during 4th of July week. We have this thing called Lumpy Homecoming, and it's where there's a bunch of vendors are set up, homemade meals like collard wraps and pepper jelly and chicken bog, and we have a huge powwow that's held in our at our college, UNCP, and I feel like that's where they should start off because being a part of the Lumbee tribe, we're not federally recognized. We're state recognized, but we're not federally recognized. And at some point, I'd love for us to be federally recognized because we've had people come down here and quote unquote spy on us because we're not real natives. And I feel like that's where I would love them to start with my story because I want people to see how our traditions are and our culture because we have this museum at UNCP as well. We have a lot of historical monuments at there. We have a lot of tales or stories, And I'm not sure if many people know about the story of Henry Berry Lowry, but he was he a lot of his moments are in that museum, and I feel like that's a great way to start my story today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that we have to let go of Gabby here in a couple minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and shift it back to her. Gabby, really quick, let's talk about the Tribal Agriculture Fellowship, just so all the communicators know about what that resource is and your organization's mission. But also want to talk about like you were an intern, you went to school, you graduated, you worked with NAF, now you're at TAF, and now you're going back to school. But another great thing is that you get to work with the Tribal Agriculture Fellows. And so you're like not very far removed from them. So how would you go about, what's a piece of advice that you would give to other communicators having been on both sides of it?
Yeah, so I think Keona hit it right on the money of meeting them where they're at as well. But first, to describe a little bit more about the Tribal Agriculture Fellowship. So TAF is a organization that helps meet Native students where they are. They help students in high school, in career and technical education, in undergraduate and graduate levels. So we kind of have this full perspective of trying to meet students and keep them connected to agriculture long term into their careers. And I know that I have to leave soon, but I want to stress that we're always seeking new partnerships as well to support our fellows, to give them more resources, to teach yeah, just in general. So if you guys are interested in partnering in any kind of capacity, whether it's connecting us to new people or new organizations, you're always welcome to visit us at taffellows.org and email us. They're there. Um, we have so many projects that branch from helping BIE create programming in high school areas. So we're working on Wingate and Sequoia right now and providing like ag programming for them. We also do support students through WLC as well as the National Convention. We have our fellows who
Really
we also
quick, Gabby,
oh,
sorry
yes.
to interrupt. Could you explain what WLC is for anybody
Oh,
who
yes.
doesn't? Thank you.
So WLC is the Washington Leadership Conference. It's hosted through FFA. And so what we do on our end is we select a cohort of students with NAF to give them introduction to native agriculture while they go to DC. So that's just like a brief aside. But National Convention, our fellows, we take them on different trips across the country to see native agriculture in different areas. This last year, we went to Boston, Massachusetts. So we got to show them the, I'm just now forgetting the names. Well, you can find more on taffellows.org if you want to learn more about that trip.
Yeah.
But we got to go see how like clamming farms are done. We got to hear about the different kind of issues they've had in being in this highly touristed area, doing agriculture in those areas. One of the key stories that I remember is one of the fishermen told us that Oprah Winfrey, don't say this, I don't know who, this is something we can tell outside. But she had tried to sue the tribe for clamming outside in the waters in front of her resort home. Um, but like the fishermen were there first. So there was this huge controversy back then, and it just constantly happens because people will buy these multi-millionaire dollar resorts to go swimming, while people are trying to do agriculture in those waters. So we got a lot of cool different things, different areas, and yeah.
It have range for the fellowship is what Erica had asked.
So the fellowship itself is specifically for students who are going into higher education. So that's career and technical as well as undergraduate and graduate. So that's the age range there. But we do have our outreach programs and that reaches out into high school. I don't believe there is a set age range specifically whenever it comes to our applications and things. Because again, we do have like graduate students who are far advanced in their careers. So yeah, so there's not like a specific age range except for the outreach programs themselves.
And pursuing agricultural related
Yeah.
degrees,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. And when does your application open this
So
year?
this year is going to be a little bit different than the rest of them. So we're doing a year-round application and we're focusing more on career and technical students. So we
Mhm.
have been trying to do a good balancing of our program, and in the past few years, we have had a lot of undergraduate and graduate students apply. We have Henry Hasinger, who is our main career and tech, but we really want more that are being jobs into our programming. So that's what we're going to look into. And for that, it's a year-round application because there is a severe difference in how undergraduate, graduate, and CTE students tend to apply to things. And career and technical is a little bit of a widespread thing. That includes welding, it includes truck transportation, it includes like greenhouse operators, those kind of things. And we'll be doing more social media coming up, but
Follow.
Um, do you could elaborate a little bit more on WOC? Because I was actually a part
Participate. Yes.
in
Yes.
2020.
Um,
So
Go for it.
I was actually granted the scholarship, you could say, for WOC. I done it through
Tribal Agriculture Fellowship.
yes TG
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But when I went, I was actually very scared because at first I don't like people knowing that I get scared about things. I try to seem like very confident in myself, but I'd never flown a plane before, so I was very nervous. And then when I got there, I made friends first day. I was actually a little worried because when I got told that I would be with people that I knew, I was a little scared because I was going to be in Washington D.C. and I was going to be with a bunch of kids that I didn't know, and I was worried. But after the first couple of days, I got very comfortable and I made friends that I still talk to today. And it was an amazing experience, especially I got to go to the uh, National Native American Museum and I got to learn a lot more about Americans I didn't even know. And it was just an amazing experience, and I've recommended it to everybody that comes to my school. Like, if you get the chance and you're an FFA and you want to go to and you want to do things, go to WLC. You will branch out like you'll bloom like a flower.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I actually was going to come to you because it is a really great experience. And that will be posted on socials whenever they're opening it up for applications. So keep an eye on that. Um, but really quick, just to ask one more question, and then we're going to switch over to Elaini with IAC. And that would be, hang on, let me get back to my question screen. Hold, please. Okay. So really quick, when you guys think about the future of agriculture, what role do you see for younger people like yourself? Or in like a perfect world, what role would you love to see youth play when they're stepping up into agricultural spaces? Keona, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I think that personally for me, I would love to be more in, well, I would say for me and for upcoming youth, to be in more of a decision-making role. I think that including Native voices is important, but especially the youth, because any decisions that we make can definitely impact their future and limit or extend their opportunities or abilities to do things. So I would definitely say a decision-making position would be great for youth.
Awesome. Thank you. And Cornelia, what about you? What would you like to see youth being involved in more agriculture? What would you like to see that look like?
Probably innovation and technology decision making. Like Keona was saying, like getting fresh, more ideas in communications. And I feel like our youth, including me because I am the youth, but I feel like everyone in my generation and to come is our future. And I feel like they should have that experience or have that choice to be able to make the decisions that they think will help with agriculture in the future.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. That concludes our youth panel discussion for this portion of the webinar. We're going to switch it over to Elaini with the Intertribal Agricultural Council. But seriously, Cornelia, Keona, Gabby, thank you so much for being a part of the discussion today. Like you said, you guys are the youth. So hearing your perspectives and how you would like the youth to be more involved, or how communicators can engage with the youth, and even just like hearing about your interactions with communications along the way is really inspiring. And keep up the great work. Cannot wait to keep tabs on you as you move forward in the future. And thank you so much for, again, joining us here today. So now we're going to go ahead and switch it over to Elaini, and she'll be able to go ahead and give the Intertribal Agricultural Organization perspective of how to support youth in ag and how to create opportunities for youth to be able to speak, lead, and connect with agricultural careers. So I'll stop talking and hand it over to you, Elaini.
Thanks, Samantha. Hi, everybody. My name is Elaini Vargas. I am a member of the Kashaya Band of Pomo Indians of the Stewart's Point Rancheria in Northern California. We're a coastal forest people, and I live in Napa Valley, California. It's really nice and sunny today. Been kind of hot, but really happy to be with you all. So I'm the Youth Programs Director for the Intertribal Agriculture Council. I've been in that position for almost 4 years now. And previous to that, I was an intern with IAC. So I've been involved for about 10 years in my undergrad. And I kind of came in as what we call like a young professional, an older age group. I was 23 when I was introduced to IAC through my tribe's environmental department. And I very much like Cornelia and Keona and Gabrielle shared that about agriculture exposure. I grew up not really knowing that I did ag, not really understanding that there were different levels and a huge umbrella to agriculture. So I really got my start when I was volunteering for my tribe and was able to meet Kier Johnson Reyes through the Intertribal Agriculture Council, and just kind of like build a career. And I'll talk a little bit more about mentorship later, but for me, it really started with mentorship. I had grown up playing soccer my whole life and went to college for soccer, and I just really lived sports. And so this other world didn't really exist to me until I was done playing soccer. I wasn't going to be a professional soccer player, so I needed to kind of find a different avenue of passion and life and career. And so, you know, connecting back to my tribe and to agriculture, it was just a really cool pathway to see like the world open up for me. And Kier was a huge part of that. He provided so much mentorship and so many opportunities that I just would have never known existed. And so that really helped build my professional development throughout college, after college, and then into like the real world of careers. So just a little background on me and how I got started with IAC. So for the Intertribal Agriculture Council, we were founded in 1987. And, you know, to pursue and promote the conservation, development, and use of our agriculture resources for the betterment of and better benefit of American Indians and Alaskan Natives. To achieve this, IAC programmatic offerings have expanded over nearly 4 decades to include the following, which are our legal and policy development, USDA technical assistance, natural resources management, domestic and international marketing support, regenerative financing assistance, and then Native youth in food and agriculture leadership development. And so we do have kind of a plethora of departments and opportunities for all ages of people, all areas of people. And I focus specifically on the youth. And so today I'm really happy to talk to you about our youth and professional development programs. We have a number of programs that kind of change because we are a nonprofit, right? We have a lot of grants, and so deliverables change, and programs are able to be kind of like reboosted and revamped. So we've had a couple different names for our programs, but they typically all follow the same thread of uplifting and inspiring our youth into agriculture. So we do have an annual conference coming up. It is in December. And this year we're doing things a little different. We usually have a youth track at our annual conference. We're going to be having instead the youth attend the general sessions and start to create this cool professional development opportunity for the young professionals in our programs. And so we've had our interns, so we have internships, we have our fellows, we've got a law and policy fellowship, and then we have our Native Youth Advisory Council, which I'll talk about, and a couple other programs that we kind of send out this message of like, who wants to come, who's interested. It does fall in the time of finals, so it's a little difficult for students to like work around the schedule, but we do our best to, write letters of support to teachers and professors of like, this is what your student will be getting out of it. If there's any way that we can help support or that you can support their professional journey, we appreciate it. It is a full travel scholarship as well, so if that's of interest. Some ways that this annual conference helps the kind of like leadership moments and youth programming for these youth in their careers is inviting them to attend the caucus meetings that we have. We're a membership organization, and so we've got member tribes. And so they're split into regions of the country, and then they have our annual meetings. The caucus meetings are really a place where the members come up with different suggestions as to what IAC should be focusing on in the coming year to either help that region or help the nation, help the betterment of Native people in agriculture. And so a way that we've expanded that, and which I love that our young people on the call have talked about, is creating the decision making for youth to be a part of that conversation, right? So really giving them the tools to attend those meetings and talk about what is helpful from their community, their younger community in that region, for us as like a national organization to carry forward, right? So we're going to be focusing on that this year, which we're really excited about. We kind of started it out the past 2 years, and so we've been kind of building this momentum to get them into a place that they feel comfortable making recommendations in a room full of adults and tribal leaders and professionals. So really working on that. We have a very cool internship. It's going to be announced in 2026. It'll be national. So tribal youth ages 18 to 26 can apply to that internship. It's paid, and so they'll get a stipend for the work that they do. They'll get a housing stipend. They'll get mileage reimbursement. We partner with the National Resource Conservation Service under USDA. And so there is a component where you get to meet and work with NRCS and see what they do in connection to tribal people and the tribal communities in your area. It's an internship that's extremely flexible in the sense that you're not really interning with IAC. You get to actually intern with a host site near you. So you get to pick this agriculture entity. So it could be a tribal department, it could be a tribe itself, it could be a tribal producer, it could be a tribally owned business, anything that is like helping tribal people in agriculture. So you would work with them, and then you work with NRCS and you work with us. So you kind of get this like trio platter of coolness. It's about 3 months long, and so we do it in the summer months in order to like cooperate with schedules that we know are really difficult. But we will be opening up a year-round one. So folks that I've worked with who are like on quarter schedules, that's been really helpful. Folks in master's programs, that's been helpful. So we're excited to expand that into like a year-round deal. We just finished a policy fellowship, which Hey was supposed to be on with us today, but she has a horrible ear infection. She wrapped up our California-specific Ag and Food Policy Fellowship, where we did 3 months with 3 different nonprofits that are California-specific in agriculture and food systems. They gave some like really great workshop material that these 4 fellows did some ag research throughout and gave like strong recommendations as to how these organizations can expand on working with tribes. They were all young women from California tribes and beyond. And they were all recent grads except for Haywee. Haywee is still in her undergraduate studies, graduating this year. Let's see, we've got a Native Youth Advisory Council. So it's made up of Native youth from the ages of 19 to 26 in each region of the country. So if you look on our IAC website, there's a cool map and it depicts like each region. So you can actually see what region you're in based on the state that you're in or the tribe that you're with. And so we have a youth representative who they are a counsel to the youth programs, so to my program. And we meet monthly virtually, and then we also do like an email catch up. And so these young people help provide recommendations specific to their region on like what's going on with youth. So updates of like resources that are available, things to apply for, but also like our program development. So they help really give us some good advice on like if this annual conference way that we're going is going to work. They're going to present at annual conference. They do like scholarship opportunities and roundtable deals. But yeah, they've been really essential to helping build the department and providing that really good feedback as to like many of the young people on this call, meeting them where they're at, right? What is relevant to them? How can we help? And how can we support? And then let's see, we've also got one last thing. We have our LEAP program. LEAP is a program that was previously called Food for Families, and it helps provide youth grants of about $500 to young people in agriculture from ages 14 to 26. And so it's, again, a very flexible program in the sense that like if a young person is doing anything in agriculture and needs funding for it, they can reach out and write to us through this application what they would need the funding for. So for example, we've had a lot of livestock folks who are ranching, cattle management, things like that, 4-H, FFA writing in and saying, you know, I need to buy like fencing and feed for my animal, or even like I need to buy my animal, right? And like this $500 could be really helpful towards that. So they write in, we do have a word count. So you've got to reach at least 200 words. It's like 200 to 500. We ask 2 questions about that, and then we collect some of your information. And then any supporting documentation. So pictures of what you're buying, Amazon carts, like whatever that shows what you are actually going to be buying to do your agriculture work. Other things that are not livestock related for ag would be like I'm starting a garden, a community garden. I'm starting a household garden to feed my family. These are the cultural plants or, you know, native plants in the area that I'm looking to buy. We've had even someone asking to write for filming and photo equipment because the work that they were doing was like shooting tribal farmers and producers and building like a story, a photo story on that. I've had people call in about drones, like, you know, I'm needing to like survey the land and put it into like a GIS map and all of this really cool stuff, right? We also support youth that are wanting to go to conferences that might not have enough money to support like a travel scholarship. And so writing in to let us know, like, what's that agriculture conference? How are you going to be using it in your community or in your space? I'll pause there. Sam, how are we doing on time?
We actually only have 5 minutes left.
Okay, you go.
Thank you. All this information is really important because, again, us being communicators, sometimes we're the middlemen for dispersing the information that you just had told us. So if possible, Elaini, after this, so I always send out a post-webinar email, but we can include links to all of the things that you had just mentioned, just so everyone knows that those resources are available. That would be amazing. I just want to leave us with a couple of things, and I am going to come back to our panel for a closing question, but really quick before we go, here are some tips for communicators when working with youth. Um, I just think it's really important that, again, we meet everyone where they're at. So definitely letting youth tell their own story is important, and handing them the mic literally instead of writing about them. Co-create content with them and engage with them, interview them, have them take over your Instagram for a day. And you can provide light coaching and bullet points and a frame of where they can fit into, but something like that just to even get them started. So Keona was mentioning that she's Gen Z, right? So she's on TikTok. So sometimes it doesn't need to be these big, 5 to 10 minute videos. Sometimes the youth engage and interact better with something that is just short and sweet and funny. We always talk about kind of like lightening up our content a little bit. I know that we're in a space where sometimes we do have to push a lot of information out, and sometimes, ag policy comes up, but also don't forget that communicating and networking with people should be fun. And so maybe the youth can be that little comedic relief sometimes, and engaging them that way. Another thing is tell stories, not just stats. And I work at NAF, and sometimes, we're always looking at data from the reports that we get back from our grantees, but beyond the numbers, if it's 95 youth that show up to a Sugar Bush event, that's awesome. How can you take that 95 and instead just putting a graphic, 95 youth showing up to this event? Can you pick 1 to 2, 3 youths to kind of share their experience? Or maybe they've never been to a Sugar Bush event before, and this was a great opportunity for them. So keeping an open mind when it comes to sharing, yes, it was a great event, but again, pulling those youth aside and having them tell their own stories. So the youth of this panel had spoken about this before, but building relationships before you build campaigns and really meeting them where they're at. Sometimes I feel like us as being professionals and in communications, like we have this content calendar that we want to knock out, knock out, knock out. However, sometimes even when working with farmers, what if a farmer is just busy with harvest and we were really supposed to interview them today? Same with youth. Maybe they have school going on. Maybe they're in extracurricular activities. Like maybe it's just going to be a photo and a caption, but meeting them where they're at. And again, center culture in place, especially with Indigenous youth, highlighting cultural context, land ties, and community benefits rather than only production metrics. And make sure that the visuals respect the protocols. Some events and ceremonies aren't for filming. We've talked about that before. But engaging with the youth and making sure that you guys are both on the same page. This kind of is a reiteration, mixing platforms and formats. What might work for a youth might be different for, our tribal councils, or trying to get funding going, but being able to have the same content, but repurposing it in all these different ways that make sense for the youth to engage with, but also for us who are those middlemen and those storytellers along the way. And then skill building, offer quick workshops or toolkits so youth know how to film, how to make their own videos, how to edit. We had talked about, like, it's amazing that ag communications isn't really like, it's not the first thing people think of. They think of farmers, ranchers, and producers, but ag communicators play a really big part in especially our culture, storytelling is a huge part of our cultural and traditional ways. And communications is just a different word for that. And then lastly, measure and sharing impact. Follow up with the youth. Did new doors open for them by speaking and being a part of this conversation? So being able to share those wins publicly. So I know I just sped through that, but hopefully you're able to kind of just get a quick glance at how we can create career pathways. And these are some tips that you can take back home with when working with our youth. Closing question. Really quick, I do want to ask the panelists, please pick one as we wrap up, but I gave them an opportunity to pick one of these questions that they can answer. So go ahead, we'll start with you, Elaini.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, I chose the question, what's one small action anyone in this room can take to support the next generation of ag leaders? Um, when I talked about mentorship and the way that I kind of came into this space, I would absolutely say connecting with a young person in your community is a great place to start, regardless of if they are a relative or just, someone that you know. Ask them to coffee. If it's a virtual thing, ask them to a virtual coffee. Buy them a meal, give them a call. I think anything that you are comfortable with, going on a walk, mixing something that's a little active into it can help take the pressure off. Talk to them about their future, their goals, tell them some of yours. So always reciprocity in terms of sharing your experience. And then beyond that, I challenge you to keep the conversation going. So checking in with them periodically to share some of those updates, send them opportunities that cross your path. Think of them for professional development opportunities. Even if they say no, and if an opportunity comes up, still send it to them. One of the best things that Kier, my mentor, talked to me about was it made a pivotal just change in my life, and it's why I am where I am today. He said, don't just say no, say yes. Trying it out. Like if you don't like it, then at least you know it's something you don't like. That, if you're not fond of it, at least you know now, right? And so saying yes can be like this huge impactful moment. And I just really encourage you to kind of like stand by these young people and continue to remind them the ease in which change can come. We all think that change can be so hard, but I think there is an ease to it if there are supportive posts there, right? And I really just challenge you all to maybe take on some sort of mentee mentorship.
And to elaborate on that, even in this group with our Native Ag Communicators work group, I think that's something that I envision down the future for us to get more involved in is building up the next generation of storytellers and inviting them to be a part of this work group and be a part of that mentorship. And, maybe it is like just collaborating on a reel. Are there any youth in your community that are just crushing it on social media right now? How can we get involved with that? And how can we kind of already start planting that seed to shape them as a communicator in the future? And then Keona, we're going to come back to you to close us out. So what question did you pick?
A surprise, I picked the one that says, imagine you can make a TikTok or a reel that the whole world saw. What's one thing you want people to learn about Native youth in agriculture? And I think that would be that they're not afraid to take up any space. They're letting their voice be heard. And it's really important to not try to box them into a stereotype or anything, and that they're following traditions, but at the same time, they're kind of innovating for the future. And yes, they are a future, but they're also contributing to things right now. So I think it's really important that we highlight what they're doing right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for ending us on that note. Like I said, we are going to be meeting again in November for Native American Heritage Month and to kind of take a look back at the year that we had as a Native Ag Communicators work group. And then December, please join us for that feedback session and being able to network and work with each other. But thank you so much. All this will be recorded and hosted on our website. And I am going to send out a post email like I always do. I am on travel for a little bit, so it might just take a second to get back to you. But thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today. It was really great to have your perspectives on being a youth in agriculture and working with a youth in agriculture. So thank you again, and thank you all for attending. Any questions or anything that you guys have, please reach out to me. I believe you all have my email. But that being said, have an amazing Thursday, have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you for our next webinar. Thank you.